Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. In this episode, I'll cover Minnesota's Somali fraud scheme mess and immigration related news. Of course, I'll end with the noteworthy tidbits. Court documents confirm that Somali fraudsters in Minnesota stole $50 million in taxpayer funds meant for starving children, using those funds to buy lakefront Minnesota property, first class tickets to Istanbul, a 2021 Porsche, and wire fraud transfers to China and East Africa. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sent investigators into Minnesota to track payments to Somalia, issuing a geographic targeting order against certain entities to ensure payments to other countries, like Somalia, are immediately caught. Bessent said of the matter, "We will not stop until we fully investigate, analyze, and permanently end this massive fraud ring." Minnesota politicians like Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Representative Ilhan Omar are under fire for negligence to the matter and even possible involvement. As Will Kane pointed out, Omar is accused of enabling the fraud schemes by filing the 2020 Meals Act. She held her campaign victory at a restaurant owned by a fraudster, and she has associations to convicted fraudsters. Furthermore, Omar is seen in pictures with the executive director of Black Lives Matter in Oklahoma, who has now been charged with wire fraud and money laundering. Ellison reportedly received donations after meeting with Feeding Our Future representatives, a program that is the biggest part of the fraud ring. Congressman Greg Staub said Governor Walz should face criminal charges of conspiracy and aiding and abetting criminal behavior due to his role in the Somali fraud scandal, because if he didn't know about it, he should have known. And U.S. Attorney Dan Rosen called out Walz and Ellison for allowing rampant fraud, saying, "The people at the highest levels of responsibility in the government at the state of Minnesota looked the other way." The White House posted proof that Ilhan Omar married her brother, and border czar Tom Homan said the federal government is now investigating her for immigration fraud, which leads us right into our next topic, immigration-related news. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard said she is targeting radical Islamist ideology infiltrating America by re-vetting every Afghan national let in under Biden, and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy confirmed 53% of New York commercial driver's licenses were issued illegally. New York was not verifying if the applicants were in the country legally, and many can't speak English. As a result, the state may lose its federal funding. New York isn't the only state at risk of losing federal funding for this issue, as California is also under fire, and Secretary Duffy explained, "Americans shouldn't be worried about an unqualified foreigner is operating an 80,000-pound rig that could endanger their lives." Duffy also said, "This is not about politics. This is about safety. This is about the right people to operate these really big rigs. You need to be well qualified on the American road." A third illegal alien with the last name of Singh was arrested for causing a fatal crash, this time in Washington state, and he now faces vehicular homicide charges. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released due to an order by an activist judge, and he promised to fight the Trump administration. In response to this, Border Commander Greg Bovino said, "When he becomes deportable for the second time, we will deport this individual." The Trump administration is terminating temporary legal status for Ethiopians in the United States, with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem explaining, "After reviewing country conditions and consulting with appropriate U.S. government agencies, the Secretary determined that Ethiopia no longer continues to meet the conditions for the designation for temporary protected status." DHS arrested a man in Tulsa, Oklahoma on 10 counts after posting on social media that federal agents need to be gunned down, shot, and executed. And Congressman Chip Roy is pushing legislation to halt all immigration, explaining, "You have migrants being put on welfare. We've got to pause. Because we have 51.5 million foreign-born people in the U.S., 16% of the population, the highest since the early 1900s. And we paused in 1920. We had 40 years where we reclaimed our sovereignty." ICE activity has increased in Pinal County, Arizona, after the sheriff ramped up cooperation with the Trump administration, turning traffic stops into deportations under 287G, and Commander Bovino confirmed over 10,000 illegal aliens have been apprehended in Los Angeles. Representative Abe Hamada filed legislation establishing a memorial in Washington, D.C. for victims of migrant crime, and Angel families visited the Capitol in support of this legislation, holding up photos of their loved ones killed by illegal aliens. Last for this topic, President Trump posted that 62,000 migrant children have been located by the Trump administration so far this year. Some may remember I mentioned this in a previous episode, but since the mainstream media chooses to neglect this positive development since it happened under Trump, I'm choosing to repeat it again. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Old Glory. Let me tell you about them quick. Are you looking for a gift for a music lover, or maybe some apparel to show off your quirky side? Old Glory has you covered. With over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture, you're guaranteed to find the perfect item. They even have seasonal gear. My husband enjoys the Beatles and Led Zeppelin apparel, and I love the Billy Idol apparel. I even found items for my fellow plant enthusiasts. This family-owned superstore is known for their quality and customer service, offers free standard shipping on all orders, and orders are shipped the same day you purchase. My discount code gives you 15% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit oldglory.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. Military presence in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela has been ramped up to 15,000 to 20,000 personnel, 12 U.S. warships, F-35 and F-18 fighter jets, and surveillance aircraft. War Secretary Pete Hegseth made Huntsville, Alabama, the home of the U.S. Space Command instead of Colorado. President Trump hosted the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team that defeated the Soviet Union in 1980 in the Oval Office to award congressional gold medals in the team's honor. Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf is now able to breathe on his own, can stand with assistance, and is transitioning to inpatient rehab. Congressman Al Green is receiving backlash from senior Democrats over his latest attempt to impeach President Trump because it looks as though people are using impeachment as a campaign tactic. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser is refusing to release Tina Peters after President Trump pardoned her because unfortunately President Trump does not have the legal authority to pardon her. As I said in the previous episode, presidential pardons only apply to federal cases, and Tina's case was through the state. The U.S. House passed legislation to surge environmental approvals for natural gas pipeline projects. The Trump administration is sending $900 Christmas bonuses to 18,000 Amtrak workers, with the money coming from cutting perks from top executives. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy explained, "It's budget neutral. We aren't spending more federal money or Amtrak money. It's taking money from the executives and saying, let's share the bonuses with the mechanics, operators. Let's give some of it back this Christmas season." Vice President Vance swore in John Jovanovic as the new chairman and president of the United States Export-Import Bank. The First Circuit Court of Appeals struck down Judge Indira Tawani's order blocking the defunding of Planned Parenthood through the Big Beautiful Bill. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is suing President Trump over his construction of the new ballroom at the White House. That's all I have for today. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast, and follow me on Instagram and X at Shades of Jade Pod. Thank you for listening and have a great day.